Today, boys and girls, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at what makes a good writer. Okay, because when we are writing our stories, we want to be a good writer. We want to write a good story. It wants to be interesting, and it wants to keep whoever's reading it, they want to enjoy reading it. So we're going to see if we can become better writers. So can we think of any ideas? What do we think makes a good writer? So now normally we would do this in class, but and you would give me ideas. So today I'm going to have to give you the ideas, although you can still shout ideas out to your screen. So what can we think of good ideas? So I think to use capital letters and full stops in our sentences. Okay, otherwise if it's one long sentence, the whole story, it's going to be very, very hard to read. What else makes us a good writer? I'm going to do this, and this is neat handwriting. Okay, if your handwriting's giant, then it's going to be very, very hard to read. And I'm also going to put a finger space here, because if it's all one big long word, then it's going to be very hard to read. So you have to use neat handwriting and use finger spaces. What else makes a good story? So I think it's really important the story has to make sense. You don't want to read a story that doesn't make sense. You can't say one day dog do walk in park, because that doesn't make sense. One day the dog went for a walk in the park. Okay, it's really important. If your story doesn't make sense, it's going to be very hard for people to read it. Okay. The next thing is to make your story more interesting, you need to use wow words, or you can call them what they are, which is adjectives. Adjectives are describing words. Okay, so instead of just one day I saw a tree, you could, for example, write it was a leafy tree. It was a tall leafy tree, or for example, you could describe the leaves, so if someone can really see the picture of what it is in their head. What else can we do? So we've got adjectives, we've got it has to make sense. We've got finger spaces and handwriting. We use capital letters and full stops. What else can we do to help I think our writing to make it better? So what were we talking about yesterday? We were talking about using speech marks. So I'm going to draw speech marks here. We can use speech marks when someone is talking to make it better. The other thing we can do is, instead of just always starting with once upon a time and they all lived happily ever after, we can change the start and the end of the sentences. So we can have, oh, no, I don't want that. Sentence. Oh, my S has disappeared. Starters. Okay, so it's nice we don't always start a story with once upon a time. You can try and think of different ways to start a story. Otherwise, if, for example, you all wrote a story in Zeus class and every single person started with once upon a time, I might think I'm reading the same story 25 times. The other way to be a good writer is to make sure you use your imagination. Okay, I'm sure you have got, from the stories I've read that you have written before, you've got some wonderful ideas in your imagination. Okay, I don't particularly want to read 25 Princess and the Frog stories. I want at the end of this to read all of your stories, and I'm sure you've got the most wonderful stories in your head. And all this work we're doing, we're trying to unlock those stories. So you'll use your imagination, and that will help you to create wonderful, wonderful stories. And the other most important thing is you need to stick to the sections, the 5 sections. So in all our writing, we use the 5 sections. We do opening, build up, problem, resolution, ending. If you, for example, write a story, you write the opening, you write the build up, you write the problem, but if your problem isn't solved, so in The Princess and the Frog, if at the end of the story, the frog was still the frog and the princess didn't keep her promise, that wouldn't be a very good ending to the story. So you must make sure you stick to the 5 different sections. So let's go back and let's just recap. To be a good writer, we need to use capital letters and full stops in our writing. We need to have nice handwriting and use finger spaces. It needs to make sense. We need to use wow words, so we need to use adjectives to describe things. We need to stick to the 5 sections: the opening, problem, build up, resolution and ending. We need to use our imaginations to unlock the stories. We need to use different sentence starters, so not always, for example, once upon a time and at the end they all lived happily ever after. And we can also, this time, we're going to use some speech marks in our writing. So we need to remember some of these things, because when we do our actual final writing, I want to see if you guys can use some of these things in your writing. So here are some more ideas. You can use some vocabulary. We talked about adjectives. You might use some verbs. So a verb is a doing word. Wow words, that's what I said. You might use a simile. So for example, something is like something else. You might use some connectives. So to join 2 sentences together. Oh, this is one we had handwriting and we didn't have a title. That's a nice one. And paragraphs. Oh, that's one we didn't think of. So every time we start a new section, we start a new paragraph. So the opening, and then after we finish the opening, we have a new paragraph. So we leave a line and then we do the build up. And then after we finish the build up, we leave a line, new paragraph, and then we do the problem. This is what we were talking about. Don't use the same sentence starter over again. So you could have later that day, one sunny day, suddenly, meanwhile, finally. They're good. Use your senses to help you describe. What can you hear, see, smell, taste and touch? That's a really nice one. And when you're introducing your characters, remember to describe what they look like, what their appearance, their personalities, what they like and they don't like. In the story, we meet the frog and we see a picture of him, but we know what frogs look like, but we don't really know anything else about him. Okay, the princess, we haven't really heard anything else about her. We don't actually know what she looks like. So every person would probably draw a different picture of it. So we can describe the character. So this is really, really important. How to make a perfect sentence. You need to have a capital letter, which we've talked about, finger spaces, a full stop, which we talked about. Your letters need to be well formed. This is not cursive, but if you can write cursive, you can. But you need to make sure your letters are well formed. Okay, you can see this is a nicely formed letter. But we make sure we, for example, when we do our for example, p, up is not starting at the bottom and round like that. That is not up. We start at the top, go down the pirate's plait, up and around his face. Okay, same with but is not that. It is down the boots and over the laces. Okay, so we need to remember all those things. And we need to make sure our writing is neat and tidy, so the person that's reading it can read it. It must make sense, and we must write on the line. Can you see that there are some letters like P and F, they have descenders, so they go under the line, and there are some like F again, T, T and H and K, and also capitals that go not over the top line, but they are a little bit taller. So do we always have to start a sentence the same way? Do we always have to say the princess, the frog? No, we don't. And actually it'll get quite boring. So these are some different sentence openers that you might want to use in your story. And they've got in categories. So they're time. So for example, one day, one morning, one evening. Oh, after that, I like that one. After a while, before long, afterwards. And we've got lots more. Oh, later on, I like that one. Next week. Oh, this one's good. All of a sudden, that's a nice one. If you're talking about order, you might say at first or first, then second, third, then last, finally, next. If you're talking about where it is, you might have in the middle of the somewhere. You might have in the distance, far away, in a far off land, at the end of the, next to the opposite there. That's nice. If we want to add extra information, you might have again, also, another, along with, for example. And if you're making a comparison, so you're comparing two things, you might want to say however. That's a nice one. Yet, despite, that's a nice one. Even though, although. So these are some different sentence starters you might want to use in your stories. And another one is, instead of using and, you might want to use some different words in your stories. So using and is actually a year 1 requirement. Okay, when you're in year 2, you need to start using some different words to join sentences together. So and is a conjunctive. It links 2 words or phrases together. So for example, I went to the shops and I bought an ice lolly, for example. You might write the words when, if, that, because. So I might write, I went to the shops, I bought an ice lolly because it was very sunny that day. Okay, so you might want to see if you can use, it doesn't have to just be these words, you can use a year 3 and 4 words, or you can use these additional words if you want. So try and choose different words instead of just and all the time, to put some more conjunctions in your stories. So let's see if we can write some of our own sentences. I have written some of my own sentences here, and we're going to have a look at them, and we're going to see what is good about them. So I've got my highlighter. So instead of just starting the sentence, the princess, I've written one day. I could have made it even better by writing one sunny day, one very messy writing, one cloudy day. So then I've made it even better by giving you an adjective. So one cloudy day, the princess woke up and, so I have used and here, but that's okay, and saw the frog was sitting on her bed. So here I have started the sentence in a different way. I haven't just written the princess woke up, I've written one cloudy day. The next sentence, the princess didn't want the frog to eat with her. And then I've put a comma in. That would make her feel sick. So I have used, instead of and, the princess didn't want the frog to eat with her, and that would make her feel sick. I've put that, so that's my conjunction. I'm joining 2 sentences together. And I have put an exclamation mark in the end. Okay, and what I've done is, instead of the princess keep saying yuck, 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 I have expanded on it, and I've said that would make her feel sick. Okay, then the last one, the princess was shocked. So I've put a good word in here. Instead of the princess was sad, because a lot of the time we use the word happy or sad, and actually there's much better words. I could have used surprised. The princess was shocked when the frog turned into a handsome prince. So I've used the word when, and that is joining my 2 sentences together. So the first could have been the princess was shocked, then the frog turned into a handsome prince, but I've used when to join the 2 sentences together. And I didn't just write into a prince, I've written a handsome prince. So I've used an adjective to describe the prince. Okay, so those are some examples of my sentences. What you're going to do now is you're going to write some sentences linked to the story, and you are going to see if you can use things like adjectives, different sentence starters like I have. See if you can use some wow words. See if you can use some conjunctives. Remember all the things we talked about in our toolkit, capital letters, full stops, finger spaces. They're all the things you're going to see if you can use in your sentences, and see if you can be a wonderful writer. I look forward to seeing all your sentences, and I'm going to, for all the things you use, I'm going to give you marks for. And if you do lovely sentences, then you can get a maximum of 4 marks in your piece of writing. So let's make sure you post a picture of it so I can mark it. And the most important thing also is make sure this is your work. Okay, there's no point an adult or a parent writing the sentence out for you and you copying it, because that is not your work. You need to try and see if you can think of the sentences yourself. Okay, good luck for today, and don't forget to post a picture of it. Bye for now.